Welcome to South Texas Now, featuring attorney Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. He grew up right here in the Coastal Bend and became a physician's assistant, fell in love with the law, and became a lawyer. Each broadcast of South Texas Now brings you unique interviews with some of the voices that make a difference right here in South Texas. Now please enjoy this episode of South Texas Now.
And welcome to another episode of South Texas Now. This is attorney and nurse practitioner Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on the NBC affiliate, CBS, as well as Lopez Broadcasting. We want to take a thank you for the Lopez family for helping give me my start, all their contributions to politics, and may their dad rest in peace, Don Humberto Lozano Lopez. With me today, I have the honor of bringing on somebody who has had experience for over 30 years in the law. He's served as a judge for your county. He's helped children as a juvenile judge, and now he wants to be your district attorney. Welcome, Terry.
Good to see you, Joe.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining me. What a political, Tip O'Neill used to say all politics is local.
It's local.
And it is sure local and national. We're so divided, so many of us. But thank goodness that the voters in Nueces County will see and learn about you. And that's why you're here. You want to tell us a little bit about your education, training background?
Sure. I went to college and I graduated from St. Ambrose College in Davenport, Iowa with an accounting degree, and then moved to Texas, and then in '85 went to the South Texas College of Law in Houston. Graduated in 1987, started practicing law. Worked for the county attorney's office for about 2 years in the Nueces County Attorney's Office, and then I went out on my own and been doing criminal defense work, special prosecutor on certain cases, and then I served as the Nueces County judge for 4 years, and then the juvenile judge for about 2.25 years. So that's kind of the run of the tale.
Yeah, being in the law, you specialized in some pretty serious cases, high-profile cases. I know you can't comment on attorney-client privilege and stuff, but what are some of the memorable areas that you've worked in?
I did some capital murder cases, death penalty cases, and I was fortunate enough to sit next to experienced defense lawyers, experienced prosecutors. Learned a lot when I was young. Rick Rogers was one of the main ones, right? He was really very efficient at that defense work and picking juries, because in those cases you pick them individually, right? The jurors, it's not a panel. You take them one at a time to see if they qualify for those type of cases. Did some federal work. That was interesting. That's completely different, as you know, than the state work. And so, I've had a good background and a diverse background of both defense, mainly defense. Been appointed by some judges as special prosecutors in certain cases. And so I had the luxury of really learning from the more experienced lawyers when I was young, and that paid off tremendously as I got older and handled the bigger cases.
Well, I had the same sort of experience. You learn from people, and picking a jury, especially in a capital murder case, it's so important, especially being one of the few states where the death penalty is on the table. With all that experience, my understanding is that you have planted your flag and are running for district attorney. And going from that background, you've been a judge twice before, and all this experience in criminal law. What drove you to say, you know what, I'm going to be district attorney?
I think as you age, right, different challenges. I've done the county judge thing where, handling a $100 million budget, 1,300 employees. I did that. Did the juvenile stuff and CPS. And so as you age, you graduate, and your experience leads you to different places. And so mine evolved into the district attorney's office because there's such a change in the criminal justice system now than it was when I started practicing in the 80s.
You saw something, and I remember that it was maybe a decade ago or so. You saw that there was some inadequacies in your views at the district attorney's office. Now we face other political factions saying that the former district attorney, who has been replaced by an appointed district attorney recently, he resigned, but there was this 120 or 100 and some odd petition against him saying, and I read the petition, and there was some very serious allegations, but I want to know, the job, there has been a lot of errors made in the past by other people, but it doesn't just fall on their shoulders. There are other people that work there. Evidence may or may not be mishandled, things like that. But you certainly have been a vocal for justice and for defending the accused, innocent. We all forget innocent before proven guilty. So can you explain a little bit about what the controversy was?
Sure. Well, so the controversy is basically it's nationwide. Okay, it isn't just local. This is a nationwide, and it's a lot of pressure in Texas, and it's an intentional underfunding of DA's office, so they do not have the ability to retain experienced prosecutors. So it's a tremendous disservice to the community. They're in Nueces County, they're probably underpaid about 25%. Most of those prosecutors are leaving to adjoining counties to do less work, less stressful work, and for maybe $10,000 to $25,000 more a year. And I don't blame them. The workload is tremendous here. They're only about half staffed, and that is directly related to the inadequate funding that has taken place over a number of years. It's not just 1 year, the last 2 years. It's been over the last 10 years. And that has an effect because, if you're an experienced lawyer, it's hard to take a pay cut, right? I mean, and if you're going to come in and work 25% on a lower pay scale, you probably won't be able to make the bills. You can't put your kids through college, you can't pay the rent, you can't pay the mortgage or, the bills that you normally have as an attorney and as a family unit. And so the financial stress has caused that office to break down because you're having turnovers on the lawyers. Evidence is going to get lost, and cases are not going to get tried because they don't have lawyers that are proficient, enough experience to do it.
What would you do differently? I know it's nationwide.
Right.
It's state funded. As district attorney, I mean, you know how to handle numbers for sure with your background and also as a county judge. What would you advocate for in order for experienced prosecutors as well as new prosecutors to have the enthusiasm and the gusto to want to have a robust DA, the department here in Corpus Christi? What can be done if you're district attorney?
Well, I think, if you have good leadership, if you have a person at the top with the experience and people want to work for that individual, I think you can attract them, even though the pay might be a little bit less. And if you attract good prosecutors, senior prosecutors, those that might want to just practice the next 4 or 5 years, then they can train the young prosecutors. The young prosecutors, they want to be good lawyers, and they want to be proficient, and they want to know the rules. But, it's scary for them. It's the first time in the courtroom, and, they got to get their feet wet, and it takes a long time to get that experience. So if you have someone sitting next to them on a daily basis, they get that confidence. And they then want to serve because they feel confident about the product that they produce. And so I think it goes to leadership, and I think it goes to someone's dedicated to get the job done and address the violent crime that we all are experiencing, and it is a problem. It is a serious problem, and it needs to be addressed, but that can only be addressed with experienced prosecutors and better pay.
And per capita, I was reading the stats to prepare for this, Corpus Christi is a little bit higher than other cities, their size, on crime. Sure. The police are working hard. The district attorneys are doing the best they can. But at the top, the leadership, it always falls on someone's shoulders. I remember Carlos Valdez was district attorney, I don't know, quarter century. I don't know.
Probably 20 years.
20 years. And he ran it well with what he had. I just wonder, because of the political climate, I worry that we're so divided. They say how to change an ultra-right conservative to a moderate, let him stay in jail for a day or two. Right. And so, how would the DA, if you were in there, work with the county jail? Because right now, I interviewed the sheriff, and he says overcrowding's a problem. And it's just not, you can't put everybody in the same box because of gang affiliations, mental illness, suicides, propensity for violence. So how would that work? How does the DA coordinate with other agencies?
Okay, so in 2003, when I was a county judge, we did that. The Commissioner's Court worked with the DA's office, worked with the Sheriff's Department, and worked with law enforcement. And we isolated about 110 inmates at the county jail that we wanted to go to trial, and wanted to go to trial quickly to either resolve it, either probation, dismissal, or TDC time. And they were picked based upon the age of the case and the type of case. And the ones that were looked at were the ones that were violent offenders and members of gangs. And the reason we did that is because the longer that gang member stays in your local jail, the more dangerous that jail becomes. So you have to address that issue quickly. And it's a security risk for the sheriff, it's a security risk for the other guards there, because their gangs are well organized, right? And they have resources. And so you have to address that and address it appropriately and quickly. It's not something that you can just let fester.
Well, we're going to take a break in a minute, but what would you like to underline to our audience? We're going to cover some other things, but about the district attorney's office and about the need for change.
Well, I think the change is coming, and the need is that we have to address violent crime. We have to be smart on crime. And we're going to have to address violent crime quickly. We can't let it just linger, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And that is going to come with experienced prosecutors teaming up at the DA's office to address each individual case and address them quickly. It's not as difficult as it sounds. It's really the dedication of the resources to those cases, the allocation of the resources.
Well, you've been listening to Terry Shamsie. We're going to take a brief break, but he is running to be your district attorney, former county judge, former juvenile justice center judge, and criminal practitioner on the defense side, also with 30 years of experience. And we'll be back after these brief messages. And we're back after a brief break. We're here with Terry Shamsie, your former county judge for Nueces County, also the judge for the Juvenile Justice Center, and in private practice, and a great practitioner, one of my mentors for 3 decades, and also went to my same school, Go South Texas College of Law, 100th anniversary. Listen to me, people. There was a guy named Treese. Oh, boy. Yeah, I was one of Treese's people. pieces. Yeah, I loved mock trial. Then I found out what real trial was like. But we're back with Terry. It's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
We were on the talking about interesting things on the break, and one of them being it's a hard job.
Yeah.
I mean, the stress. We talked about the lack of pay, and people will say, "Well, that's your job," but try being in 5-digit land, trying to support a family of 4, 5, 6, and with everything going up, and then the burnout, and then you said maybe half to 3/4 staffed the way it should be.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess the logical question for the voter out there, be they Republican, Independent, Libertarian, or Democrat, is why? Why now?
Yeah, no, I get that asked by my own family. And the reason is this. I owe a duty to this country and to this community. It's been good to me. I've done well. I've done well because the ones that came before me were hardworking, honest judges, honest politicians, and great public servants. And I think we need to get back to that. And I have the skill set to deliver that. And I think I would feel honored to be able to serve the community and to help out the victims and the community. Because in the past, the public service was an honor. Right?
It was a calling.
It was a calling. You did it. You didn't do it for the money. You did it because you cared about your community. They have so demeaned public servants now that a lot of people don't want to run for office or they don't want to be public servants because of how ugly things get. And really, it's the highest level of honor you can have is to be a public servant. It's very important, and people don't realize that until they need the public servant. Until they need the police officer, until they need the fireman or the nurse or the paramedics. They don't understand that until you need it. And same way with the DA's office. You don't understand how important it is until you need them.
That's right. Until someone that's ultra-conservative or ultra-liberal, either way, they're so far divided, and the rest of us that are centrists are saying, what if it was your daughter? Right. What if it was your son? What if it was your policeman's son that got hit by a drunk driver?
That's right.
And you want justice. Well, justice takes resources, money, and the political will to go above the rabble, the masses of the people that are sometimes apathetic, and overcome the votes. You're running, and you have to get elected in every 4 years. And so, this is your third drill. Are you ready to campaign?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues of the campaign is that people really don't get tuned in until the election time, right? So there's a lot of work you do before you get up to that speed and address the issues. And a lot of the issues will change between now and next November, right?
Absolutely.
So, at any given time, there'll be a different hot topic. So I'm ready. The question is, are the citizens ready to vote? Because one of the problems we have, and both parties have it, is they don't consider the other candidate. They either vote straight Republican or straight Democrat, so they don't consider the quality of the candidate. And if they want someone in the middle, someone that's reasonable, they're going to have to start considering that. Otherwise, they're going to get extremes on both sides, and that isn't going to work in government. Either side, if they're extreme, it doesn't work. Government breaks down because there's always a compromise in government, always. And so I think that's one of the issues is that, are they going to look at the quality and the qualifications of the candidate, or are they just going to hit party line? If they hit party line, it's going to be tougher for them to get a qualified candidate, not only in the DA's office, but also in other public offices.
Well, it's true that somebody gets appointed by another politician. That's not really the voters speaking.
Right.
They're just a placeholder, but they get comfortable in the office. People hear the name. They come out on television. They say, well, that must be the DA. I've heard the name. But it's like being vice president. You're a couple of steps away from being president. The president, something happens to them, and all of a sudden you're the leader of the free world without one vote.
That's right.
And so, by the same token, we've got somebody in who's an excellent attorney. I mean, but that has been approached and tapped to be, appointed. But there's also someone within the office that is running against them. I see that as internal strife. Once in an interview with Carlos Valdez, he said they should make the rule that when you're in office, your underlings cannot run against you. I mean, that's almost like a Caesar Brutus sort of thing. I mean, what's your opinion on the appointment and then somebody in that same office running against them? I mean, isn't going to be it's going to be a holy war.
Yeah, I think that first, I think Jimmy Granberry was appointed by the governor, right? And Jimmy Granberry probably has the same number of years experience as I do, maybe 1 or 2. I might have advantage on him. And he did probably 90% criminal defense. And I think he was at the DA's office for 3 or 4 years back in the early 90s. So there's no doubt about his qualifications. That man is qualified. So he's a good candidate. But as you say, if you have a candidate and you have someone within the own office running, it's a very difficult situation and to deal with. And how they deal with it, I don't know. I'm not privy to that. But I worked for Carlos Valdez, and back, in the day, in the late 80s, beginning 90s, if you wanted to run for office, he'd give you the blessing. You just couldn't do it from his office, right? You'd have to leave the office because they made it a lot simpler. And that way, the office is not used for political purposes, right? For criminal prosecution, and you want a high-profile case, get your name out there, that kind of stuff. And I thought it was a smart policy, and it paid off well. It kept the office from being divided.
Yeah, and my understanding, he's running for judge now.
He's running for judge for the 28th.
For the 28th District Court. And that'll be a hotly contested race. The relationship between the judges and the district attorneys, often people assume, well, they work together well every day, they see each other every day, but that's not necessarily true.
That's not always true. The judges have to do their job, and sometimes, like I tell my clients, the judges rule, and if they rule against us, you got to respect the ruling. You may not like it, but you got to respect it, right? And so I think the DA's office, being in the judge's courtroom on a daily basis, I think they get a feel for what the judges expect, and each judge is different. And I think the importance is that if they're there long enough, the assistant district attorneys understand that the judge can be nice, but the judge is going to do their job. And sometimes that job might not coincide with what the DA wants. Sometimes there's hurt feelings, but really as they mature, they understand, hey, the judge is just doing her or his job. They don't have to agree with the DA. They don't have to agree with the defense lawyer. They do their job. And so if they get too comfortable, it's probably a bad sign.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because the person, and I wanted to just cover briefly the Bail Reform Act and how it conflicts with what's going on now. It's almost like the legislature is punishing a carrot or a stick. Set the bond high on somebody that makes $2,000-3,000 a month, and set $100,000 bond on, say, he and his spouse argued or something, but no physical damage or anything, but it's a he said, she said, and the person's in there for $50,000, $100,000 when it used to be $10,000. How is that person going to get out, much less afford a lawyer?
That's right. That's a big deal. And everybody knows that, that the criminal justice system is broke in that respect, that money does play a role. Resources, if you're from a working family, paying a bondsman, paying a lawyer, showing up to court, all the incidentals you have to pay can be a huge financial burden. And all that is done before you're ever found guilty. And if you're found not guilty or the case is dismissed, you don't get the money back, right?
It's terrible.
It's a hard system. They try to make changes, but some of the changes have been kind of rolled back because the judges, they kind of liked it, where they had more authority. They could individualize cases, and it was much better for them under the old changes. The new changes is much more restrictive, and it holds people in jail an extra 3, 4, 5 days unnecessarily. Right? Because the issue is very simple. They just got to look at the criminal history, but you can't change the bond or the term until they review their background, right? And that they have to sit for 3 days for that information to gain access, for the judges to gain access and the DA to get ready. We used to do it on the fly. And the judgment calls for those kind of cases by the judges were very good. The judges, they've been around the block, so they know the criminal history. They know all the information they need to make a good judgment call on bonds.
And with technology, you can let them out and be on house arrest. Yeah, and if they step outside their yard, well, we've got about a minute left, but I want you to address any issue or talk to the public. There are 200,000 registered voters out there that are going to have to make a decision. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I'd like to tell them that, I'm running. I don't have an opponent in March, so I don't have a primary opponent, so I'll be on the ballot in November. And when November comes for the public to vote, and when they go down the list, they see district attorney that they consider my qualifications and vote for me, Terry Shamsie, for DA. I will do them an honest job, and I will deliver a great product, and I'll restore some of the public perception that might have been lost over the years of the trust and the ability for the DA's office to function accordingly.
Well, thank you for your time. And I just want to say that it's just not about the accused. It's about the victims that district attorneys also weigh the impact that it has on somebody who's been assaulted, somebody who's afraid, somebody whose home has been invaded or child been hurt. So remember, when you vote for experience. And the show doesn't obviously endorse any candidates, but it's been an honor to bring on Terry Shamsie, who has been behind the bench a couple of times and with 3 decades of experience wants to be your district attorney. So remember, Terry Shamsie, Nueces County District Attorney candidate. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate you having me here.
We're out of time, but thank you all, and God bless.
You've been watching South Texas Now, featuring Joe A. Flores from the Flores Law Firm. For questions and comments, please call 361-887-8670 or visit floreslawfirm.com.